Heading home from Walmart. Here we go. Now I have to pull out before I can put on full self-driving. Not quite ready yet. Now it'll take over. This is another video of me trying to see how I have to nudge the car here. I won't call that an intervention, but it is a little bit of an issue because that was kind of an unusual situation. Someone stopped there. Don't know if he's waiting for those other people or waiting for cars to come by or what. So pretty hesitant in the parking lot right now. I'm trying to film all my drives, video all my drives, and make every one of them on full self-driving, paying attention, and seeing how often, if at all, I have to intervene. I have found a few cases like just now where I had to nudge it a little bit by pressing the accelerator so that it would go. Definitely not a significant intervention, but does suggest that it's not ready for robotaxi yet. And I've had some situations in my own neighborhood that required an intervention. So I'm definitely not getting 200 or 300 miles between interventions like some people are talking about. Although, if one were making a long trip, it would be more likely to get a long distance without interventions. What I'm interested in is it anywhere close to being ready to be a robotaxi? One thing that it seems to me is needed for it to be a robotaxi is that it has to be able to park itself. And either if it's a privately owned car that's been added to the Tesla network, find its way home and park itself in the driveway or at least on the street at the place where the owner lives, so that the owner can then plug it in to charge up. For corporate robotaxis, they're going to have some way of charging up on their own, or they'll have to come home when their batteries reach a certain state of charge to some location where a human will charge them up. So that's going to be interesting to see how that all works out. In China, there is an electric car company that actually uses battery swap technology for their private owners. They pull into a battery swap station, and I believe it's all automated. Their battery is removed and a new battery, charged up battery, is reinstalled in the car, and it takes very little time, and so they're adding full range within just a few minutes, 5 minutes, maybe a few minutes more than that. So they already have an automated recharge process that has been in effect, and therefore when that company wants to move to self-driving cars as robotaxis, they should be able to do the charge part of it quite easily. that's going to be a big challenge for cars in the United States built by Tesla, unless they've got some trick up their sleeve they haven't been telling us about. A number of years ago, they filed a patent on a robot arm, looked kind of like a snake, that would find the charge port and insert the charging nozzle into the charge port of the car and then remove it when the car was charged up. I don't know if they ever actually developed that or if they only patented it, and certainly it hasn't been in the news in the last few years. There has been talk of various companies experimenting with wireless charging of vehicles. That makes a lot more sense from a logistics point of view. If all you had to do was have your car park in a certain spot and then you could recharge it because its charge plate on the bottom of the car was close enough to the charge plate embedded in the road, or however that would work. But in order to get high-speed charging, the technologies I've read about to date require those two charging surfaces to be very close together, like within less than 2 or 3 inches, which might mean that you would need to have a movable charge plate, so that once the car is in place and correctly aligned, that the charge plate in the road rises up to be close enough to the car. Although there's constant research and experimentation, and maybe someone will figure out how to do high-speed charging at a longer distance than they can do it now. That raises other questions of health considerations. If someone is in that car while it is charging wirelessly, is that going to affect their health? As a recent ham radio licensee, I had to study for my ham radio license, and a number of the questions concerned the health effects of RF radiation, radio frequency radiation. If one does not handle a ham radio situation correctly, one can actually get some pretty nasty burns from the antenna that is transmitting ham radio broadcast transmissions. Broadcast is the wrong word to use, but transmissions from a ham radio. It would have to be a pretty high-powered ham radio, and someone would have to be very close to the antenna, but it's a very real thing, and there are people that have been injured by RF radiation. I happen to have a 220 volt circuit installed at my house so that I can get level 2 charging for my Tesla. My son's been talking about perhaps wishing or wanting to buy a Ford F-150 Lightning electric truck. And if he were to do that, we would have to figure out, okay, how are we going to charge that electric truck at home? Eventually, those electric trucks will accept a Tesla connector. don't know if they have started making them with the native Tesla connectors on board when they're manufactured. Time for me to take over so I can go into my driveway. Or if they're still making them with CCS connectors and then you have to use an adapter. And I know there was a delay in getting those adapters manufactured and out to owners. If he were to acquire an electric vehicle that used the same charging port that my Tesla uses, then we could simply choose which of the vehicles we're charging up at any given time. Or we could spend some extra money and get a smart switch that would allow us to have both vehicles plugged in at once, and we could set a priority as to which vehicle would receive their charge first. Another non-intervention drive, and my mileage is now 16,869. For those keeping track, this is full self-driving 12.5.2.